So it's
Hi, this is Jim from Safety Wars. Before we start the program, I want to make sure everyone understands that we often talk about OSHA and EPA citations, along with some other regulatory actions from other agencies, legal cases, and criminal activity. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Proposed fines are exactly that, and they are often litigated, reduced, or vacated. We use available public records, news accounts, and press releases. We cannot warranty or guarantee the details of any of the stories we share, since we are not directly involved with these stories, at least not most of the time. Enjoy the show.
This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
And from the border of liberty and prosperity and the highway to the north, this is Safety Wars for Tuesday, July 18th, 2023. We have some podcasts and everything else that are going to be dropping this week, probably on Friday. And some exciting things. One of our interviews had to get delayed because of the writers' strike and the SAG strike over in Hollywood. We had some people in that union that are not to discuss a lot of their stuff. Now, I don't know if you've seen the press releases. Anyway, what's going on out there? It's summertime. We got a lot of stuff going on. And there's a lot of, and we're not going to be able to make it here live every day. We're going to still try to do our 3 to 5 programs per week. And I can't believe we're up to like 253 episodes on Safety Wars. Some of them live, some of them not. I appreciate all the support and all the feedback that we're getting here. Even the negative feedback. I've gotten some of that this week. So, that's what's going on here. I'm trying to get all this stuff up here. I mean, I tell you what, so some of the news sites I would go to. I mean, I'll be honest with you. They get they get taken down. They get blocked. They're under cyber attack. It's very disconcerting. So that's what's going on. Taking a lot of continuing education, a lot of jobs coming up. Had to hire a couple of people. It's great. So yesterday we had a midday check-in with everybody. I ended up, big news came out of OSHA. OSHA feels that it's not really going to impact business. And on paper, yeah, I guess it's not going to impact business. However, will it impact business? Yeah, it will. Because we're adding another step to this here. So, as everyone knows, you have to post and submit OSHA 300 free data, right? Once a year, injury, right? 300, right? And it's called the 300 log of work-related injuries and illnesses. So establishments, it's a requirement. You got to have that. OSHA comes to your facility. You better have that on hand. If you meet the reporting requirements, you better make sure that it's reported and submitted to OSHA and the correct time and all that. You can go and look that all up and everything. We're probably going to go into a little bit tonight. Well, now, starting January 1st, 2024, if you're have 100 employees, here, I'll just read the thing, the press release here. Department of Labor announces rule expanding submission requirements for injury illness data provided by employers in high hazard industries. By the way, let me point this out, and I'll put this in some of the on some of the social media and some of our other stuff. We tend, because we go over these press releases first, we tend to be the only one. We're like ahead of other people, and I've heard from some organizations that they're trying to beat us to the punch on this, which I guess is good. I guess that gives us some legitimacy here with things, which is good, right? So when there's a safety issue that comes out, because we read the press releases here on air, we're able to go and ahead of everybody by a day, 2 days, maybe 2 weeks on a lot of this stuff. And most of this stuff doesn't even end up in the alphabet soup of networks out there. And as I point out, majority of people in this country work. And the majority of those people are not in government, so they're covered by OSHA. They're regulated by OSHA. So if something is impacting the work area in your workspace where you make your moolah and everything else, why wouldn't that be one of the things that is being reported? I mean, other than DMV, OSHA pretty much hits everybody up. And even if you are part of government, OSHA is a consultation and things of that nature. They have programs for government employees here. All different types of stuff on all different levels. So why wouldn't you this be one of your things if this is what impacts your life? I don't know. It's one of those just question out there. You don't have to send a million questions in on email. So, Department of Labor announces rule expanding submission requirements for injury illness data provided by employers in high hazard industries. We announced this yesterday afternoon. The U.S. Department of Labor today announced a final rule that will require certain employers in designated high hazard industries to electronically submit injury and illness information that they are already required to keep to the Department's Occupational Safety and Health Administration. The rule takes effect on January 1st, 2024, now includes the following submission requirements. Establishments with 100 or more employees in certain high-hazard industries must electronically submit information from their Form 300 log of work-related injuries and illnesses and Form 301 injury and illnesses incident report to OSHA once per year. These submissions are in addition to the submission of Form 300A summary, which is what we've always had to do. Form 300A summary of work-related injuries and illnesses. To improve data quality, establishments are required to include their legal company name when making electronic submissions to OSHA from their injury and illness records. OSHA will publish some of the data collected on its website to allow employers, employees, and potential employees, employee representatives, current and potential customers, researchers, and the general public to use information about a company's workplace safety and health record to make informed decisions. OSHA believes that providing public access to the data will ultimately reduce occupational illnesses and injuries. Now, this has been part of a long-term thing where OSHA knows that it takes up to 19 years to issue new regulations, and they're very slow at responding to things. All right, very, very exceedingly slow to bringing in all these new things. So what they're doing is the shame and blame game. During the Obama administration, we're not talking politics here. I'm just stating fact. This is just fact. They said this whole shame and blame thing where they are releasing OSHA citations, proposed citations, and legal actions again that they have with certain employers. Dollar General comes to mind. Some of the other large employers, large disasters, even some of the smaller ones here, especially in the Metro New York area. It seems they are very active in Texas and some of the other states where they're releasing this data to shame the employer into doing things. So often when I do the OSHA outreach training, we go into looking up establishments, and we have the class. We look up establishments where they work, where they have worked, things in the in the industry, wherever they're interested, to show that these resources are available. I see this becoming part of the OSHA outreach program for some trainers to go into this. Last night I did a training class for a client of mine. That's why I wasn't here. They prefer the nighttime training sessions, and I'm willing. One of the things that I do, I am willing to work around your schedule with this stuff. I've given classes at 3 a.m. in the morning. Before the work crew goes out, we do a safety training class. I've done classes at Well, yesterday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they start the class and it doesn't end until 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night. That happens. I'm there for you. But 845-269-5772 or jim@safetywars.com. But now this is another tool with this where people are, hey, you're interested in working for a large company? Hey, let's look up what some of the accents they have. Another way of shaming. There was another thing with the Obama administration, which seems a lifetime away, where they tried to change the salary requirements, or if you're making under a certain threshold, now you were able to. No, you had to be paid by the hour. Salary was not allowed. Very controversial, but believe it or not, and I know some of my listeners will be shocked, I happen to agree with Obama. If you're dealing with the safety industry, but that got shot down in the courts on that, right? The other thing is that they tried to do was, and I don't know if it was on the federal level or a lot of the states, they made it legal. It used to be illegal for a company to say we're not going to share the salary and salary requirements, and made it confidential, whatever you got paid. Well, that's gotten we've been away from that legally, where a company can't necessarily do that anymore. And in New York City, if you're posting a job opening, you have to disclose under certain circumstances what the job actually pays, the range that what it pays. Because what happens, you're looking for a job, and again, safety industry is famous for this. You're looking for a job, you go try to get the job, and you go there, and guess what? No, the job is scoped out. You're thinking one amount. You go in there, and it's about 2/3 of what the job should pay, and that wasted everyone's time and everything. And this has had some issues where things have gone up. So let's talk about this. We're going to go to commercial break. We're going to talk about this new rule, and we're going to break out the on the OSHA website the instructions for work-related injuries and illnesses. So we're going to break out the instruction manual. I'm going to do a share screen on here. It did not work out so good last time, so we ended up having to do some stuff we didn't necessarily want to do, like delay release of an episode. So let's go to commercial break, and we'll be right back.
You are listening to Safety Wars. Turn safety today.
In the professional safety community, communication and planning are just a few keys to your program's success. The question many practitioners have is, where do I start? Dr. Jay Allen, the creator of the Safety FM platform and host of the Rated R Safety Show, has built a global foundation to help you along the way. Go to safetyfm.com and listen to some of the industry's best and most involved professionals, including Blaine Hoffman with the Safety Pro, Sam Goodman with the Hop Nerd, Sheldon Primus with the Safety Consultant, Jim Pozell with Safety Wars, Emily Elrod with Unapologetically Bold, and many others. As individuals, we can do great things, but as a team, we become amazing. Dial into safetyfm.com today and surround yourself with a powerful force of knowledge and support.
OSHA recordables, catastrophic losses, environmental disasters. You want answers? So do I. This is Jim Pozell with Safety Wars.
That's my daddy.
That is right. I am your father. Okay. Oh, by the way, we have to send out our message here. It's Tuesday. This is Safety Wars, broadcasting to our brothers and sisters in the occupied territory of behavior-based safety. Get out your secret decoder ring. Here is your nightly message.
Blaine, fixes nothing. Blame fixes nothing.
Okay, I have to give a little ribbing to the behavior-based safety people out there. Yes, we understand that nobody has evil intentions, but what ends up happening is people take a little bit of information in the behavior-based safety world, and they end up going and making people's life hell with everything. It's just, no, I shared on Facebook today what a guy having a meltdown about a safety shutdown, for example. So we're going to go over OSHA forms for record keeping, work-related injuries and illnesses. This is from, so you go over to OSHA.gov and Google, and you put on their search engine exactly that, forms for recording work-related injuries and illnesses, and it's going to be give you the OSHA 300 forms, the 301, summaries, and everything else. So I have it up here on the screen. I'm sorry if you are listening to this on the podcast or on safetyfm.com right now. You can't see this unless you Google it right now. So I'll do my best for describing it. The log of work-related injuries and illnesses 300, Form 300, is used to classify work-related injuries and illnesses and to note the extent and severity of each case. When an incident occurs, use the log to record specific details about what happened and how it happened. The summary, separate form 300A, shows the totals for the year in each category. At the end of the year, post the summary in a visible location so that your employees are aware. So that's February 1st to April 1st every year. Employers must keep a log for each establishment or site. If you have more than one establishment, you must keep a separate log and summary for each physical location that is expected to be in operation for 1 year or longer. Note that your employees have a right to review your injury and illness records. So what OSHA is doing is, rather than ex post facto, meaning after the fact, they're going to start with the large employees and employers, and I imagine it's going to eventually move to the smaller ones. What everything is before you get the job, and with that, now you're going to say, "Well, Jimmy, some of the stuff on here seems like it's HIPAA violation." Well, guess what? According to, and again, you go and you check with your local state and your attorney and everything, HR people and everything else, a lot of HIPAA stuff does not apply to this kind of stuff. A lot of HIPAA, right? The privacy does not apply to this. Because I tell you what, as you'll see with this, you cannot fill out this stuff without that, right? Without saying what happened and who it happened to. When an injury and illness is, cases listed on the log of work-related injuries and illnesses are not necessarily eligible for workers' compensation or other insurance benefits. Remember, workers' comp is a local, state issue. Listing a case on the log does not mean that that the employer or worker was at fault or that an OSHA standard was violated. So remember that when you're managing people. When is an injury and illness considered work-related? This is along the lines of, is it a recordable? So you have an injury, is it recordable? This is laid out by statute. An injury or illness is considered work-related if an event, and I'm going to highlight this here, An injury and illness is considered work-related if an event or an exposure in the work environment caused or contributed to the condition or significantly aggravated a pre-existing condition. Work-relatedness is presumed for injuries and illnesses resulting from events or exposures occurring in the workplace unless an exception specifically applies. And there's a list of exceptions. The work environment includes the establishment and other work locations where one or more employees are working or are present as a condition of their employment. So, again, I've heard of cases where the IRS has gotten involved because people get hurt and then all of a sudden, they're not a real employee. We covered a couple of those cases over the past couple of months with OSHA press releases. Which work-related injuries and illnesses should you record? Record those work-related injuries and illnesses that result in death, loss of consciousness, days away from work, restricted work activity or job transfer, or medical treatment beyond first aid. You must also record work-related injuries and illnesses that aren't significant or meet any of the additional criteria listed below. You must record any significant related injury or illness that is diagnosed by a physician or other licensed healthcare professional. So this is basically this is where a lot of people screw up on here, is specifically in this one. You're going to say, well, how can you screw that one up, Jim? Well, a lot of doctors go out there and state that they are occupational physicians. And they do things that could bump you up into a medical treatment beyond first aid. What are some of the ways that they could do that? Number one is they give you prescription strength things that are actually over the counter and that they could get away with giving you the over the counter strengths. I've had some company do that already, where someone had a minor knee injury that no, it was like a boo-boo. It was like, Dr. McStuffins with a big book of boo-boos there. No, just it was just really minor. And he went out and gave the person prescription painkillers and prescription strength ibuprofen. I believe it was ibuprofen. It might have been another one. But anyway, gave him prescription strength on him. And I called up. I said, what the hell is this? And the guy says, well, you're not the doctor. I am. Now we had to get another doctor to say, look, this was a superficial injury here. Why are we doing this? And now you have people fighting against each other, and doctors don't like to do that and things of that nature. And it still ended up being an OSHA recordable. But we had an explanation in there on that. And he also gave him 3 days off for a superficial injury. That's why you go to medical professionals that are qualified in occupational safety and health that have actually done this. So what I ended up doing was I put together a whole training program for my clients on this. On specifically that, I sent him a copy. Right. Word on the street is he didn't like me. What are you going to do? He called, you must record any significant work-related, right, we mentioned that. You must record any work-related case in cancer, chronic irreversible disease, a fractured or cracked bone, or a punctured eardrum. You must record the following conditions when they are work-related. Needle stick injuries. Medically removed under the requirements of OSHA standards. So if you have a medical removal for under 1920-62 or 1910.1025 standard, you have to have that. Tuberculosis infection as evidenced by a positive skin test or diagnosis by a physician or other licensed healthcare professional after exposure to known case of active tuberculosis. An employee's hearing test reveals that the employee has experienced a standard threshold shift in hearing in one or both ears, and the employee's total hearing level is 25 decibels or more above the audiometric zero. Again, I'm not a hearing guy, right? So I'm not a noise guy. So do I do it? Yeah, but gets a little bit in there. You need to get for a really qualified person with noise surveys with that one. What is a medical treatment? Medical treatment includes managing and caring for a patient for the purpose of combating disease or disorder. The following are not considered medical treatments and are not recordable. Visits to a doctor or a healthcare professional solely for observation and counseling. All right. Using finger guards, using massages. All right, well, hold on. Using finger guards, using massages, drink fluids to relieve heat stress. That's important now, especially in the summer. I went into this yesterday at another safety training session for heat stress. you drinking fluids and going out and getting first aid CPR training to know what the symptoms of heat stress are. Guess what? You need to. That's where first aid CPR training helps with all of this stuff, to try to keep things as a first aid, but to point out that, hey, if you're thirsty, drink, because guess what? I had a prospective client have one of their employees call 911 when it was a heat stress situation, not realizing that you don't have to call 911 if you're thirsty. Serious, not an exaggeration. I said it would have been cheaper had you given them first aid CPR training. Then maybe they would have done that, because they got a $5,000 ambulance bill. How do you decide if the cases involved restricted work? Restricted work activity occurs as a result of a work-related injury or illness. An employer or health care professional keeps or recommends keeping an employee from doing a routine, functions of his or her job, or from working the full workday that the employee would have been scheduled to work before the injury or illness occurred. How do you count the number of restricted work days? You count the number of calendar days the employee was on restricted work activity or was away from work as a result of the recorded injury or illness. Do not count the day on which the injury or illness occurred. Begin counting days from the day after the incident occurred. And then you may stop counting days once you hit 180 days. Under what circumstances should you not enter the employee's name on the OSHA 300 form? Again, this is all right, you would think OSHA 300, HIPAA, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, we do have some allowances under federal law in which you're not allowed to, where, you have the option of not putting a name on there. Has this ever happened to me? Yes. A number of years ago, when I worked at an engineering firm, a female, true story here, was using the restroom, and the cleaning people did not clean off a cleaner, which was acidic, from the toilet seat. She ended up sitting on the toilet seat and getting second and third degree burns on that part of her body. So that was one case that I've been involved with this. So look before you sit, folks. That's what the lesson learned was. You must consider the following types of injuries or illnesses to be privacy cases: an injury or illness to an intimate body part or to the reproductive system. So, you get, there have been a number of cases where people had body parts amputated without a part of the reproductive system at work or things, right? Injury or illness resulting from sexual assault. So assault is an OSHA recordable on the OSHA 300 log, right? So it's an injury or illness resulting from a sexual assault, doesn't have to go on there, right? A mental, right? So you're not a mental illness, a case of HIV infection, a needle stick injury, right? Or other illnesses, employee independently and voluntary requests. And I would make that in writing, by the way, that his or her name not be entered. So you must not enter the employee's name for those cases. However, you could put privacy case instead of the employee's name. And you must keep a separate confidential list of the case numbers and employee names for the establishment's privacy concern cases, so that you can update the cases and provide information. So it's not that you don't record them, it's that you record them a little bit differently. You write them on the log, which we're going to show you in a minute, privacy case, and then you go for it, right? And then you have to keep records, because I guess, well, what if you're going to come into get an OSHA compliance officer visit? They're going to look at the log. Guaranteed. And by the way, this is a running log. You don't want to throw a bunch of post-it notes in a folder like I know somebody did one time, and then in November, let's see the OSHA 300 log for this year, and then you open it up, and from the OSHA compliance officer, there's a bunch of post-it notes. That didn't turn out so good for them. That was, I got a phone call. Hey, Jimmy, blah 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 blah. hey, so that's supposed to be a running log, and you know that. Well, we didn't think it was anything in there. Well, or the person who is in charge of log, they didn't attend any of your classes or training sessions or anything. So how are they to know? Well, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. If you have a reasonable basis to believe that information describing the privacy concern case may be personally identifiable, even though the employee's name has been omitted, you may use discretion in describing the injury or illness on both the OSHA 300 and 301 forms. You must enter enough information about the cause of the incident and the general severity of injury or illness, but you do not need to include details of an intimate or private nature. What if the outcome changes after you record the case? If the outcome or extent of an injury or illness changes after you have recorded the case, this is what we had to do with the knee injury, right? Simply draw a line through the original entry, or if you wish, delete or white out the original entry. What's white out? Anyway. Then write the new entry where it belongs. Remember, you need to record the most serious outcome for each case. So, superficial knee, you got doctors and you got letters and then things of that nature. I tell you what, you had better have your I's dotted and T's crossed with this stuff if you're going to start changing to 300 log. Got to make sure everything is heavily documented. You don't have Joe Blow writing this stuff out. You need a licensed medical provider says one thing and another licensed medical provider says another thing. Guess what? The employer has to decide who they're going to listen to, number one. And number two is that everything had better be in writing, right? Is what it comes down to. Classifying injuries. An injury is any wound or damage to the body resulting from an event in the workplace. And we know what the examples are here. Then hearing loss, we're going to go through here. All right, going on. And we are here. When must you post the summary? You must post the summary only. Just the summary. Not the log. And this is today. January 1st, it changes. And I imagine these instructions are going to change, so we better save this. By February 1st of the year following the year covered by the form, and keep it posted until April 30th. I think I misspoke. I said April 1st. It has to be from February 1st to May 1st, right? On that. How long must you keep the log and summary on file? You must keep the log and summary for 5 years following the year to which they pertain. Do you have to send these forms to OSHA at the end of the year? Many employers are required to electronically submit their Form 300A summary to OSHA. And, you can go look up if that applies to you. So right here is the calculating you could go through there, see how you're going to calculate the incident rate. But right here is OSHA's Form 300 log of work-related illnesses and injuries. And how do you fill this out? This is the example they give, right? So what do you have to post? Hold on. Let's go through this again. Where was it? I want to get that in writing for you here. You must post the summary only, not the log, by February 1st of the year following the year, and keep it posted until April 30th, right? April 30th of that year. Summary only. So here we have the Form 300 log, and over here, right, it goes on and on and on, and here we have the OSHA summary. So the summary form, which we're showing, OSHA's Form 300A, that summary has to be posted, not the actual log, right, with that. Even though it can, right, it's supposed to be available for review by the employee. So here we have case number A, column A, employee's name, job title, right, date of injury or onset of illness, where the event occurred, describe our illness or body parts, right? And then you give an example of how one is to be filled out right here. And let's see if we can zoom in a little bit more on here. So here we have Mark Bagan, a welder, 525. Basement, where did it occur? In the basement, fracture left arm, left leg, fell from the ladder. It had days away from work, listed right there. And on the job transfer, or right, 15 days, right? And it was an injury, right? So this is a recordable, and it goes on with this. Shayna Alexandra, foundryman, pouring deck, poisoning from lead fumes. That was a job transfer or restriction because it got medically removed for lead. Sam Sander, an electrician, broken leg when he fell over a box. All right, and going on, that was a day away from work. And here we go. Ralph Bocella, labor packaging department, backstream from lifting a box. Right, so you have to choose, in this column here, step 3, classifying the case, you have to choose only one thing here. You can't have two different things on here. Well, I tell you what, if you make a mistake, or if you're not sure, call up OSHA and ask. Get someone like me, 845-269-5772. We'll figure it out on here. And the other one, at 5 accidents in 1 year. I don't know how big the company is. That's how the form looks like there, and you could download it and fill it in your favorite PDF reader on there. And then you go over here and you have the summary of work-related injuries and illnesses. So all establishments covered by Part 1904 must complete the summary page, even if there is no work-related injuries or illnesses that occurred during the year. And you fill it in. Total number of deaths, total number of cases with days away from work, total number of cases with job transfer, total number of other recordable incidents, total number of days away from work, total number of days of job transfer, and then the different types of injuries. Then you put, and this is the big thing here. This is now, I've seen companies do everything perfect, and then they get to this. And it was called out in the press release today that we read, starting out with this, about 5 minutes into this. It was mentioned here that you make sure you have the right information on here. What the establishment is, the street, the city, the state, the zip code, what kind of industry description. Now, here is the important one. The North American Industrial Classification, NAICS. This is critical. Very, very critical here. Because some companies have more than one NAICS code. Fair enough. So you make sure you fill it out on there. Number one. And number two is if you are electronically submitting this stuff to whomever, or if OSHA comes, they want to see what that is so they know what industry to classify that in, because then they use that for statistics. Last night, for the class I was in, the people I used the NAICS code for that company to look up what type of accidents and illnesses happen in that industry and where other companies were cited in that industry. That's why that NAICS code is very important. That NAICS code, NAICS, North American Industrial Classification, you look that up. There's various ways you can look that up online. That NAICS code also has to deal with insurance and everything else. Then you come over average number of employees, total hours worked by all employees last year, and this has got to be signed. This cannot be signed by like the safety officer unless that is like the company executive. So we're looking at C-level people signing this. Why? Because if this is falsified, they're coming after you. I've seen companies falsify these things. There's one furniture manufacturer that lied about this stuff, which caused OSHA to change a lot of the reporting requirements. Something that is in there. Now, Here we have, this is where the change occurs. OSHA's Form 301. So if you meet the correct criteria next year for this, you're going to have to go and file this with them, right? If you meet it, 100 companies, 100 people or more. Now, this is where there's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Debate here. There's a lot of debate here with this. When OSHA, a lot of people feel that you should just fill this form out and there, because by regulation, this is what you're required to do. All right. There's some people say when OSHA, you fill out an in-depth accident report. Then when OSHA requests the information, you give them the whole accident report. There's some debate. You got to see an attorney on that. So if we're going to put over here, there were some other instructions here on this. What do you need to do within 7 calendar days? And I have it highlighted here in the thing, right? Within 7 calendar days, after you receive information about a case, decide if the case is recordable under the OSHA record-keeping requirements. There are a lot of sites out there that make you, right? And I've seen them. I've been on a number of them because they have their reasons, and some of them are valid, because you may only be at the job site for a day, a company, and have an injury, and then try to get information out of them after that. And a lot of companies will not listen to the safety professional, and it gets to the point where, hey, you don't submit the paperwork or you're not getting paid, sort of thing. So OSHA says within 7, so they make it close of business. All this has to be done, the investigation and everything. I use discretion. Sometimes if it's a boo-boo, right? Scratch, first aid, okay, we can get that done by the end of the day. With the reporting of it, maybe the investigation might have to go longer. However, if you're involved in a major accident, I personally would not file any of this paperwork until 7 calendar days. Make sure you get your ducks in a row. What if OSHA comes early? Well, there is a fatality or something. Guess what? And, you're a report, by the way, fatality, you got to call up OSHA, 1-800-321-OSHA within 24 hours. I'm sorry, within 8 hours. What am I doing with these numbers? Within 8 hours. If it's going to be an in-person hospitalization, it's within 24. Now, within 7 calendar days after you receive, right, I would go for that 7 days. However, if OSHA shows up, you have to go and say, look, this is the information we have now. And we're involved in what this is and everything else. All right. Determine whether the incident is a new case or a recurrence of an existing one. Establish whether the case was work-related. This is why you may not want to go and put this all on the log within 7 days, is that might not be work-related. Or there may be some type of issue. Is that work related or not? It's happened to me already, where we had one person who claimed a multiple chemical sensitivity type situation, was allergic to the chemicals at work, turned out to be venereal disease, an STD. Yes. Yes, Jim has crazy stories, but they're all true. If the case is recordable, decide which form you will fill out as the injury, illness, incident report. Now, this is it. You may use OSHA's 301 Injury and Illness Incident Report or an equivalent form. Some state workers' compensation, insurance, or other reports may be acceptable substitutes as long as they provide the same information as the OSHA 301. And let's go back to the actual incident thing. So it's rather basic, right? So there's a debate. What do you submit to OSHA? Well, you're going to have to submit a form or an equivalent to this. It's not really clear to me now, but at least this form. What's the name of the employee? Full name, street address, date of birth, date hired. Are they male or female? I imagine this is going to be, and I'm not being joking here, I imagine this is going to be changed, right, come January. Male or female. Information about the physician or other healthcare professional. If treatment was given away from the work site, where was it given? Facility, street, city. Was the employee treated in an emergency room? Yes or no? Was the employee hospitalized overnight as an inpatient? Again, hospitalized overnight as an inpatient. Guess what? Now that is a OSHA recordable right off the bat. Emergency room, maybe yes, maybe no. Overnight, that's recordable, and that also has to be called into OSHA within 24 hours of the incident. Complete, and over here we have completed by title, phone number, and the date. Here we have case number from the log. This is why you have to have a running log through the year. This is proof here of that. Date of the injury and illness. I would include, well, no, here it is. Page number 13. I tell people, the soonest that you can establish the time of the event, all right, is critical. I know in an emergency, you're not going to be thinking, oh, I'm going to look at my watch. Well, I tell you what, it's important. If you're responding to an emergency, when did you get the call? No, try to record that time. That's actually really important. What's the time of the event? And what was the employer doing just before the event occurred? Describe the activity and everything else. What happened? Number 15, tell us how the injury occurred. Right? With that, what was the injury or illness, and what object or substance directly harmed the employee? Now, if you do all of this, right, what are we not seeing? We're not seeing root cause. We're not seeing any of this stuff that are in there. Should that be done? The why, an accident investigation, and everything else, that's fine. When I get a call for an accident investigation, hey, Jimmy, can you do an accident investigation? I said, do you want a one-pager or you want a accident investigation? The one-pager is a Form 301. That's what I call a one-pager with this. Yeah, we could do this, right? I can do both, but I prefer doing the whole full-blown accident investigation. This is not really exciting for me to do. Okay, we could go through this. I know it's all part of what you do for safety and everything else. But what I want to do is find out why it happened. That's much more interesting for me and for everybody else involved in the process. And more importantly, why it happened is going to tell you how you're going to prevent another accident or incident. And with that, this has to all be done within a week, right, of this. This information, you can probably fill out the same day, the one-pager, in almost all cases. The other thing may take a little while longer on that, right? Remember, the NTSB takes years to do this. And you can go to OSHA.gov or give us a call, 845-269-5772, or email me at jim@safetywars.com, and we could help you fill out these forms, help you out any way we can. And we're going to go to another commercial break here, and there it is.
Is your safety training old, stale, and hackneyed? Is your safety trainer still preaching a warped version of behavior-based safety? How about safety training that actually addresses your hazards in your workplaces and is not standardized baloney from 25 years ago? Contact the Safety Wars team at safetywars.com or call Jim Posel at 845-269-5772. Remember, if you're receiving this message, you are the solution to unsafe workplaces.
So here we go. Here is the, let me make sure this is broadcasting. Right here is the, what do we call it? This is the press release. So what are we looking at is, right, let's reread this again. Establishments with 100 or more employees in certain high hazard industries So if you're not in the high hazard industry, it doesn't really matter to you. Must electronically submit information from their Form 300 log of work-related injuries and illnesses and Form 301 injury and illness incident report to OSHA once per year. So you got to determine whether you're in a high hazard industry and if you have over 100 people or more at any one time during the year. That's who it applies to. The administration and OSHA feels that this is not that big of a deal. No, not that big of a deal. Hey, we're already keeping this. I'm going to tell you, for some places, it is going to be a big deal with this. And I can see attorneys and other people filling this out, not necessarily safety professionals, even though they are simple forms. Okay, and I'm going to stop the share right now. How do we do that? Share. Stop screen share. There we go. Do. Yes, we are still learning here. We are learning. How do we do this? Okay. Do we have any other OSHA news? So there's going to be an advisory committee on construction safety meeting in August 9th through 10th in Washington. Where is it going to be? Wednesday, August 9th. The Contract Workers Hours and Safety Standards Act, also known as the Construction Safety Act, established a committee to advise the Secretary of Labor and Assistant Secretary of Labor for Occupational Safety and Health on policy matters arising under the CSA and the setting of construction standards. The meeting will include all different types of things. It's on in Washington, D.C. Is there one? Okay, and you can check out the docket. Check out it if you want to attend it online. What's the big thing we're talking about this week? Not only did we get another puff of smoke from up in Canada, but we also got high heat. Today we got a little bit of relief from the heat up here in the Northeast, but in the Southwest, where certain safety professionals are taking a couple of days with their families, it's hotter than hell out there. I mean, no, some people, like the hottest since 1974, I'm seeing in Phoenix, longest hot street. Again, water. Now, cool water, 57 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly, is what I've always heard. Phoenix reaches 110 degrees for a record-setting 19th day in a row. In Phoenix, 18 days of extreme heat with no end in sight. North Korea news. North Korea detains U.S. soldier who crossed military border into a country unauthorized. The United Nations command said Kim Jong-un's tyrannical North Korea regime has detained a United States soldier named, and I'm not going to name his name, who holds the rank of private second class in the U.S. Army for crossing the military demarcation line from South Korea without permission. My understanding is that you can't really do that by accident. I don't know. After all that's gone out there and what's happened here since the ceasefire in the Korean War, I don't know why anybody would want to go there. I'll be honest with you, unless you had some specific diplomatic reason to go there, for the government or something. I don't know. In related news, U.S. nuclear missile submarine visits South Korea as allies talk about war planning. For the first time since the 1980s, a U.S. nuclear-armed ballistic missile submarine visited South Korea on Tuesday as allies launched talks to coordinate. The White House Indo-Pacific coordinator Kurt Campbell confirmed the rare visit, which had been expected after it was announced in a joint declaration during a summit between South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol and U.S. President Joe Biden in Washington. What ship is this? Here. It's the USS Kentucky and Ohio class submarine. In a related study, Henry Kissinger meets China's defense minister in surprising visit to Beijing. Ex-U.S. Secretary of State meeting with Ling Shangfu comes amid hopes of an improved ties between the two countries. The veteran U.S. diplomat Henry Kissinger has met China's defense minister in Beijing. According to a readout on Tuesday from Chinese Defense Ministry, Li Shangfu said a friendly communication between China and the U.S. has been destroyed because some people in the United States did not meet China halfway. Kissinger said he was a friend of China, according to the readout. Neither U.S. or China can afford to treat the other as an adversary. The two countries go to war will not lead to anything meaningful for the two peoples. The Chinese statement said, hey, I'm all for, hey, our name is Safety Wars here. We're all about peace here and getting along with people. I should have probably had, maybe I will, that recording from social media here. I'm someone cursing somebody out, but I have to edit this out here. How many minutes do we have left on the clock here? I don't know. We're going off of the safetyfm.com clock. Okay, about 3 minutes. Non-human intelligence. Senator Schumer proposes stunning new UFO legislation. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, along with a bipartisan group of 5 other senators, introduced extraordinary legislation on July 13th, suggesting, and that was somebody's birthday here, 2 people, very important to me, their birthday, suggesting that the U.S. government or private contractors may secretly possess recovered UFOs and biological evidence of living or deceased non-human intelligence. According to the legislation, non-human intelligence is defined as any sentient, intelligent, non-human life form, regardless of the nature or ultimate origin, which may be presumed responsible for UFOs. I am telling you what, they're getting very close to disclosure here. President Obama did so after he left office and said, we don't really know what any of this stuff is. Assuming he's telling the truth, which I believe he is, I don't know. According to a statement accompanying the legislation, the 2017 disclosure of a previously unknown government UFO analysis program, now known as Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon or Aerial Phenomenon, I've heard it referred to as both. Again, they changed the name. Are we investigating UFOs? No, we're not. Well, are you investigating unidentified anomalous phenomenon, UAPs? Yeah. Well, guess what? This is all part of some kind of cover-up and lack of transparency, and I'm not for that. Believe me, I'm really not for that. We need to really know what's going on. So that's all I got tonight for Safety Wars. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into OSHA record keeping. It's a very exciting topic for all involved. And I tell you what, big companies out there screw this one up all the time. You can go and look that up on the OSHA webpage, on the OSHA News press release webpage. So for Safety Wars, this is Jim Posel. I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Actually, I can't see you, but you can see me tomorrow night.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.